Welcome to Fall Friday. If you're new here, my name is Leah, and every Friday in the month of October and November, I will be sharing with you a dinner and dessert recipe inspired by my all-time favorite season, autumn. So if this sounds good to you, make sure you stick around, give this video a like, that way I know that you will be looking forward to these videos every week. And without further ado, let's get started with today's recipe. On today's menu, we have some pumpkin stuffed pasta with brown butter and sage sauce. And then for dessert, we're going to be doing some pecan pie bars. We're gonna go ahead and get started with the pasta, and I've never done this kind before, but we're gonna use 3 eggs, a tablespoon of oil, and 2 cups of flour. So first we're making the well, and you could do this in a bowl, but I'm just gonna do this on the countertop because that's where I'm going to be rolling the pasta out later anyway. So go ahead and crack in the 3 eggs, put in the tablespoon of oil on top, and then you're gonna go ahead and whisk that together, get that all nice and combined, and then start working in the flour. I'm just using some all-purpose flour, but I have read in a couple of different recipes that 00 flour is really awesome for pasta. It's just much more expensive where I have looked. So I'm just using all-purpose. I've read recipes say that that's just fine as well. So you're going to combine all of this into each other, and then it's going to be about 10 to 15 minutes of kneading the dough. So it's a process. But for me, there's just nothing quite as rewarding as being able to say that I made pasta from start to finish from scratch. So it's really exciting once you start seeing the pasta dough forming, and it's going to get really smooth. Once you can push your finger into the ball and it's got like this really nice texture on it, then you know it's ready to go ahead and have it rest. So I'm just putting this in a bowl. The recipe that I followed said to go ahead and put some oil on top, and then you're going to cover it and leave it there for at least 30 minutes. For the filling, we're going to use 1 can of pumpkin, a 1/4 cup of Parmesan, salt, pepper, and a pinch of nutmeg, and 1 egg. So just go ahead and combine all of that together into a bowl with the freshly grated Parmesan. I'm sure you could use the regular sprinkle cheese if you want to, but this is such an amazing cheese, so soft. I recommend it, and you could even use more than a 1/4 cup if you really wanted to. For the salt and pepper, it's just a little bit. I would say less than a 1/4 teaspoon of each. Get that all combined, and then you're going to use that as your filling. I wish that I was able to do this part of the pasta with a pasta roller, but I had to do it completely by hand with my rolling pin. And because of that, I found it was easier if I just used smaller portions of the dough. Instead of just cutting it into 4s, I cut them into 8 sections and then worked from there. You want the pasta to be as thin as possible, and there was no way that I could muscle it into as thin of a sheet as like a pasta roller would be able to, but I did my very best and worked with what I had. I'm not very strong, so I wasn't able to get that super thin, but it still worked really well, and I will say it was harder than I had anticipated. Also, when it comes to filling the pasta squares, you're going to want to use a very small amount of that filling, but don't worry if it starts to seep out, you can just wipe it away. I found that it was not that big of a deal in the cooking process. There are so many videos here on YouTube that you can look at for tutorials on how to make pasta. Today, I just wanted to share the recipe that I used, but I am in no way a professional. I am such an early beginner. This was my first time making this pasta, and I'm really proud of myself, but it is so rustic. It is definitely not up to the standard of what it should technically be, but it turned out really delicious. I will say that. So I'm going to boil the pasta in some salt water. I'm letting that go for about 8 minutes. And then I'm getting my butter started. So this is a brown butter. You're not going to want to burn it. You're going to want to keep it moving. At least that's how it worked out best for me. and then put in about 8 to 10 sage leaves. These are fresh. You're gonna find them in your produce section at your grocery store, and just let that swirl around. Those leaves are actually frying in the butter, and they are going to be so crispy and delicious. You could use more sage if you want to. It's definitely not necessary. You can still enjoy this if you don't have the sage. It'll make a nice sauce for your pasta, but I definitely recommend the sage if you can do it. So then once the pasta is done boiling, you're going to go ahead and transfer that over into the butter. It's okay if some of the water gets in there, just don't let very much get into the butter. And then you're just going to shake it up a little bit. Let all of the butter coat the pasta, and then I added some salt and pepper to the top of it. We are so happy with how this pasta turned out. It tasted so good, and that brown butter sage sauce is going to be used in other recipes for us. Such a winner. Top it with some Parmesan and some of those crispy sage leaves. And then here, I'm just going to show you, you can see the shape of the pasta. It's so cute. It gets its name to mean little hat, and that's what they look like, right? Moving on to dessert, we are going to use half a cup of butter, half a cup of brown sugar, and get that mixed together until it's nice and creamy. And then this was not part of the original recipe, but I thought, you know what this recipe needs? Cinnamon. So here we go. We're gonna add that in as well. I feel like so many baked good recipes are just 99% better because of cinnamon. So we added that in there, and then we're gonna need some flour. We're using 1 cup of all-purpose flour here. Get that combined, and then it's going to look crumbly when it's all put together, but you can use your fingers and test it out and see that it actually forms together really nicely. So I'm using a 9x9, I believe it is, casserole dish, and the full recipe would require like a 9x13, but I am using half the recipe, and I will link the whole recipe in the description box for you, but this is for half, and you're just going to either spray it or parchment line it and press in that dough and let it bake in an oven at 350 for about 12 minutes, and then move on to the filling. Now the full recipe says to use 5 whole eggs, and I don't know how to split that in half, so I used 3 eggs, half a cup of sugar, a splash of vanilla, 1 cup of pecans, and then I also used half a cup of Caro syrup. The recipe said to use dark syrup. I happen to have some light syrup in my pantry from last Christmas, so that's what we're gonna work with. And just get that all nice and combined. And then I also use cinnamon, so you'll see that here in a minute, but it's not necessary. And then once that's all put together, you're just gonna go ahead and add that on top of the baked shortbread that you did already, and lower the heat on the oven to 275, and you're going to go ahead and stick that back in there and cook it for 50 minutes. It's going to take quite a while. It looks super soupy, but it will set, I promise. The recipe suggests to have this cool on a cooling rack, so if you use parchment paper, it'll definitely be easy to transfer over that way. And I'm just telling you right now, you have got to try these pecan bars. I am so happy that we did. It's one of my new favorites, and I hope that you enjoy it as well. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have a wonderful weekend wherever you are. And until the next video, I'll see you in the comments.